Warhammer 40K Darktide is a really fun RPG shooter, but there is a lot more depth to this game than you might first expect. And don't worry if you've never heard of Warhammer before, because while it definitely adds more to the experience, you can be completely new to the setting and still have a great time with this game. It's also on PC Game Pass and it's coming to Xbox Game Pass too at a later date, so you can always try out a few rounds, preferably with some friends, to see if the game is something you enjoy. But I already want to go over everything you need to know about Darktide right here. Thanks to Fat Shark Games for sponsoring this video. You can check out the game via the special link in the video description. A like on the video would really help us out, and let's go. There simply aren't that many games like Warhammer 40K Darktide. While you are definitely made to feel like an absolute powerhouse when you are mowing down hordes of enemies, there is also a lot of emphasis on teamwork, like having to defend your buddies while they hack a computer or protecting your squad with a shield from a dangerous enemy. And what makes Darktide really stand out is the fact that both melee and ranged combat are equally viable during any mission. So if you ever get bored of one style of play, it's easy enough to switch things up. And while that all might sound pretty simple, there is actually a lot of depth to be found as well, but we'll get to that in a bit. Because first, you want to know what exactly you'll be doing. Well, you start out in this hub area on a spaceship where you walk around in third person. There are a lot of useful facilities here, we'll get to those later, but the most important one is the mission terminal, which is where you decide what activity you want to do. You can just queue up for quick play, which drops you into a random mission, but there is also a host of selectable missions available that are worth paying attention to. At the top, you can see the difficulty level of a mission, so 1 bar for easy and 5 for very challenging, with higher difficulty levels of course granting you more rewards if you manage to complete them. On the left, you see the type of mission, which can range from assassination, where the objective is to kill a boss at the end of a mission, or investigation, where you follow a little skull robot around and have to scan things in your environment for research while constantly being harassed by enemies. That last one is definitely more challenging than it sounds. There are also optional objectives sometimes that can grant you extra rewards if you complete them, and on the right side of the mission card you will sometimes see a unique modifier for that mission, which can be things like reduced visibility or a decrease in elite spawns. So if you're up for a specific type of activity, pick the one that suits you the most, but otherwise you can just select a difficulty and go with quick play. And then you're dropped on the battlefield with 3 other squad mates, either filled by your friends, matchmaking or bots, but a team will always consist of 4 characters. You can mix and match any combination of classes, but because they're all so different, it is smart to add some variety if you can. You make your character at the start of the game, although switching to a new class and character is easy enough, as after first completion you can completely skip the tutorial. But yeah, there are some interesting background options for if you're into the lore of the 40k universe. You can customize your appearance a little bit, but the main choice is of course which of the 4 classes you are going to pick. The veteran is the most standard of the classes. If you're used to playing shooters, they have access to a lot of different rifles to mow down enemies from afar. Each class also has a special ability, and for the veteran that is volley fire, which triggers a ranged stance that highlights dangerous enemies and also gives them a 50% range damage boost. If you'd rather want to get stuck in the middle of combat, the zealot is definitely the way to go. More focused on melee weapons and damage, their Chastise the Wicked ability is a dash that restores their toughness, so the shield above your health bar, and makes your next melee attack score a guaranteed critical hit. So while those 2 classes are already a bit different, even more so if you get into their traits, which we will in a bit, the final 2 classes really distinguish themselves from the others. There's the Psyker, which almost plays more like a caster. They use a dangerous magic that, if overused, can literally mean that you blow yourself up, but their class ability Psykinetics Rod allows you to release some of this dangerous energy as well as stagger enemies in front of you. There are a lot of different spells that will become available to you, and like other classes, you have access to firearms and melee weapons too, so even without magic you can still fight. And the final class, and the one I have been playing the most, is the beefiest of boys, the Ogryn. This colossal brute has access to some very heavy weapons, from rapid fire shotguns to grenade launchers, and can charge through hordes of enemies with his Bull Rush ability, after which he also gets improved attack and movement speed. Plus, you are literally a giant, so your perspective perspective in the game is different from everyone else's. I honestly wasn't expecting this much variety between the different classes, but it's been a lot of fun jumping back and forth between them to see how their toolkits expand. And that's just the differences between the classes when you start. Because as soon as you get out of the prologue and start jumping into some missions, your character will start leveling up. And every level you unlock a new category of weapons you can use, a new equipment slot, or a new feat to give your character a new passive bonus. Feats unlock every 5 levels and can be freely swapped out between missions to build your character for a specific role. So for instance, my Ogryn has a feat that restores more toughness if I hit multiple enemies with a heavy melee attack. But if I decide to focus more on taking out elites, I can swap to Smash 'em Good and get extra toughness from heavy melee attacks against single targets. Each class has their own tree of feats, and like I said, you can easily swap between these to change up your build between missions. But definitely the most exciting part of leveling up to me was unlocking all the new weapon types. 40k is known for its over-the-top weapons like chainswords, and while leveling there is a constant flow of new ranged and melee weapons to try out. I didn't really like the Ogryn starting shotgun as you have to reload every shot, but after a few missions I was running around with a fully automatic shotgun that can mow down entire groups of enemies, or a grenade gauntlet that doubles as a melee weapon and can literally detonate a grenade point blank to blow up a horde of opponents in a single punch. Each class has access to their own selection of weapons, which means that trying out the veteran and unlocking new stuff there felt like a breath of fresh air after sticking to the Ogryn for my first couple of missions. And there's still a lot of cool stuff that I have yet to try out, like flamers or force swords that I'm also pretty excited about. The weapons feel really good to shoot too, and especially while playing as the veteran, I was surprised by how fun of a shooter Darktide is when you decide to play it that way. Now you can get these weapons as a reward from a mission sometimes, but the main way you get them is by buying them from the armory exchange. This shop has a selection of gear that resets on the hour, so you can just buy whatever you like, and every few missions there will be a new selection to check out too. Once you do find a piece of gear you really like, you can even upgrade its rarity by going to the Shrine of the Omnissiah, which unlocks after level 4. Here you can spend 2 types of resources you can find during missions to upgrade a weapon's quality, which is definitely an increase in power as only higher quality items will have perks and blessings. Perks are passive bonuses that are always active, like the improved reload speed on my heavy stubber, while blessings are effects that are triggered by a specific action, like restoring toughness on a close range kill with your shotgun. And that is just one of the features you will unlock through leveling up, as the more you play, the more the game opens up to you. At level 11, I was able to access the Requisitorium, which is a very fancy word for a place where you find weekly challenges. You get a set of 5 of them, although you can swap out individual challenges for the week if you like, which will cost you some currency, but the first one is free, and you also get an extra reward if you complete all challenges during a week. Finishing these challenges will reward you with a unique currency that can be spent on a daily selection of high quality gear. Or you can choose to gamble and receive a random melee weapon, ranged weapon, or curio, which are these talismans you equip for even more passive bonuses. So yeah, all these systems really give you the ability to build a specific type of character with way more depth and detail than I first thought. And especially on the higher difficulties, you'll need every advantage you can get because of the wide variety of enemies that will definitely keep you on your toes every encounter. There are of course hordes of regular enemies that swarm you, as well as ranged troops you need to deal with, but there are a lot of specialized units you'll come across too. There are heavily armored melee units that attack you relentlessly and can really take a beating, snipers that deal heavy damage from range, and bombers that will chuck these incendiary grenades at you and then run away to hide. There are even some enemies that require teamwork to take down, like the Poxhound that can jump on top of you and pin you to the ground until a teammate beats him off of you, or the Trapper that shoots these electric nets that will trap you until someone comes by to remove it. And if that wasn't enough, there are also bosses that can spawn during a mission to provide you a true challenge, like the Lumbering Plague Ogryn or the Beast of Nurgle that covers the battlefield in acid and has to be hit in the giant weak spot on his back. And you actually need to fight or defeat some of these bosses in particular ways to complete your penance challenges, which are these sort of achievements that can also reward you with cosmetic items. Each class has a couple of specific ones that can be completed to unlock some new looks, and there are also some general challenges that can unlock portrait frames and weapon trinkets too. You can also buy new cosmetics and weapon skins at the Armory Exchange and redesign your character at the Barber Chirurgeon, so there's a lot you can do to change the look of your character too. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe as well for way more content on upcoming games. If you want, you can watch our co-op livestream we did on the game as well by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.